You know, life has a funny way of throwing curveballs at you. Sometimes you don't even realize what's happening until boom, it's already too late. That's exactly what happened to me. Honestly, if someone else told me this story, I'm not sure I'd believe it. But here I am, sharing it with you. Buckle up, because this one's a ride. It all started when my husband Dave got called away on a last-minute business trip. Nothing out of the ordinary. His job keeps him traveling a lot. But this time felt different. Maybe it was the way he rushed out the door, barely giving me time to process that he'd be gone for *2 weeks*. Yup, 2*whole weeks. He kissed me on the cheek, grabbed his bags, and said, "I'll call you when I land." And just like that, he was gone. At first, I didn't think much of it. I'm used to being alone when he's away. But then, later that evening, something unexpected happened. There was a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so naturally I hesitated. You know that moment where your brain goes, who could this possibly be? Yeah, that was me. I peeked through the peephole, and there he was, Marcus, our new neighbor. Now let me fill you in on Marcus. He moved into the house next door about 6 months ago, and honestly, I didn't know much about him. We'd exchanged a few polite waves and quick hellos, but that was about it. But Marcus, he's one of those people who has presence. You know what I mean? Tall, broad-shouldered, and just radiating this quiet confidence. Oh, and that smile, the kind that could light up a room. When I opened the door, he said, "Hey, sorry to bother you, but I noticed your porch lights flickering. Thought I'd let you know." "Oh, thanks," I replied, suddenly hyper-aware of my old sweatshirt and yoga pants. "I've been meaning to fix that." "No problem," he said, flashing that easygoing smile. "I've got some spare bulbs if you need one. I could swap it out for you real quick." Now normally, I'd politely decline. But there was something about his tone. It felt so genuine, like I could trust him. So I said, "That'd be great." I stepped aside, and he got to work. I watched as he moved, smooth, efficient, like he'd done this 100 times. We made some small talk, and before I knew it, I was laughing at his jokes more than I expected to. When he was done, he turned to me and said, "There you go. Good as new." "Thank you so much, Marcus," I said. "I owe you one." He grinned. "Don't mention it. That's what neighbors are for." As he left, I couldn't shake this strange feeling. It wasn't anything he said or did. It was just *. The way he carried himself, how at ease he seemed. It was refreshing, especially since, let's be real, Dave and I have been stuck in a bit of a rut lately. I shook my head, trying to brush off the thought, but little did I know, that was just the beginning. Later that night, as I was getting ready for bed, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. "Let me know if you ever need help with anything else. Happy to lend a hand." My heart skipped a beat, and I couldn't understand why. I stared at the message for what felt like forever, my mind racing. Why was I overthinking this? It was just a friendly text, right? I typed back a quick reply. Short, casual, no room for misinterpretation. "Thanks, Marcus." And with that, I set my phone down. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this story wasn't over. You ever have one of those moments where something feels off? Not wrong exactly, but just enough to leave you with this weird mix of curiosity and unease. That's where I found myself after Marcus left that night. I told myself it was nothing, just my overthinking brain doing its thing, and went to bed. The next morning, I got up, went about my usual routine, and tried to shake the whole thing. But somewhere around noon, something popped into my head, the kitchen faucet. It had been dripping nonstop for weeks. Dave had promised to fix it, but you know, life happens. Normally, I call a plumber and be done with it. But Marcus's message, it was still lingering in the back of my mind. So I decided to text him. "Hey Marcus, do you know anything about fixing faucets? Mine's been dripping like crazy, and it's driving me nuts." His reply came almost instantly. "E can take a look. Be there in 10. And true to his word, 10 minutes later, that he was at my door, toolbox in hand, even in a simple t-shirt and jeans. The guy looked effortlessly put together. It's not fair, really. Show me the culprit, he said with that easy grin. I led him to the kitchen, and as he got to work under the sink, we started chatting. At first, it was just casual stuff, but then he opened up. He told me about his job as a graphic designer, his passion for cooking, and how he'd recently moved to the neighborhood after a rough breakup. I figured a fresh start would do me good, he said, his voice calm, but laced with something deeper. I nodded, not quite sure what to say. Well, I'm glad you ended up here. You've been a great neighbor. Thanks, he said, glancing up from under the sink. It's nice to have someone to talk to. This place can get pretty lonely sometimes. His words caught me off guard. Maybe it was the way he said it, or maybe it was because I'd been feeling a little lonely myself lately. Either way, it stuck with me. After about 20 minutes, he stood up, wiping his hands on a rag. All fixed, he said, turning the faucet handle to prove it. You're a lifesaver, I said, genuinely grateful. How much do I owe you? He laughed. Nothing. Consider it payback for all the times I've borrowed your Wi-Fi when mine went down. I laughed too, even though I couldn't remember ever giving him the password. Well, thank you, really. He stayed a little longer, and we ended up chatting over a cup of coffee. The conversation flowed so naturally, I didn't even notice how much time had passed until I looked at the clock, an hour. When he finally left, I found myself standing in the kitchen, staring at the empty coffee mugs on the table. There was this feeling, a warmth I hadn't felt in a long time. Later that evening, as I was scrolling through my phone, a notification popped up. Marcus had followed me on Instagram. My thumb hovered over the notification for a second before I hit follow back. Over the next few days, things between Marcus and me stayed normal. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself. He'd wave when I went out to check the mail, or he'd send me random memes that actually made me laugh out loud. It felt harmless. It felt nice. But then came Saturday. I had a whole day planned out, laundry, cleaning, catching up on chores. But as I stood there folding laundry, something happened that would change everything. You know that moment when your phone buzzes and you instantly sense it's going to throw your day off balance? That was me when I saw Marcus's message. *K, I'm grilling out later. Want to join? Just a casual thing. I froze. Dave was still out of town, and my plans for the evening were non-existent. But wasn't it weird? Then again, it was just a barbecue, a neighborly invite. No big deal, right? Before I could spiral into overthinking, I typed back, sure, sounds great, Fast forward a few hours, and there I was, standing in Marcus's backyard, with a plate of grilled chicken and veggies. The setup wasn't fancy. A small table draped with a checkered tablecloth, a portable grill, and a cooler full of drinks. But it felt inviting. It's not much, but it works, Marcus said, handing me a soda. It's perfect, I replied, and I genuinely meant it. There was something refreshing about the simplicity of it all, a far cry from the polished, overly formal dinners I'd grown used to attending with Dave's work colleagues. We ate, we talked, and somehow, the conversation felt effortless. Favorite movies, embarrassing childhood stories, even our most cringe-worthy cooking fails. It was easy, light, and so natural. At one point, Marcus leaned back in his chair and gave me this curious look. You know, he said, you're not what I expected. I raised an eyebrow. What's that asterisk supposed to mean? He chuckled. When I first moved in, I figured you'd be one of those distant neighbors who only waves out of obligation. But you're real, down to earth. I could feel my cheeks heat up. Well, I could say the same about you. You've been more helpful in the past week than some people have been in years. He smiled, and for a moment, the conversation paused. But it wasn't an awkward silence. It was charged, like the stillness before a storm, full of something unspoken. I cleared my throat and stood up, raking the moment. I should probably get going. I've got a million things to do tomorrow. Of course, Marcus said, standing as well. Thanks for coming. It was nice having some company. It was fun, I said with a small smile. Thanks for inviting me. As I walked back to my house, I couldn't shake this strange feeling. Something had shifted. Not with Marcus necessarily, but with *me*. I couldn't remember the last time I'd laughed that much or felt that seen. That night, as I sat on the couch scrolling through my phone, I noticed Marcus had posted a photo from the barbecue. It was a candid shot of the table, but my plate, very much recognizable, was right there in the frame. The caption read, *good food, even better company, *. My heart skipped a beat. What did he mean by that? Was it just a casual nod to our little get-together, or was there something more to those words? I woke up the next morning with that Instagram post still swirling in my head. I told myself I was overthinking it, because I probably was, but I couldn't quite let it go. I tried to distract myself with errands, but my phone kept lighting up with messages from Marcus. First, he sent me a funny meme that actually made me laugh out loud. Then, a random update about how his coffee machine had broken, leaving him tragically undercaffeinated. The messages seemed casual, sure, but there was something warm about them, something that made me feel connected, and whether I liked it or not, I knew this story wasn't over. You ever find yourself standing in your kitchen, staring at groceries you just bought, and wondering what on earth you're doing with your life? That was me. By mid-afternoon, I couldn't shake this restless feeling, like something was simmering just under the surface. Then my phone buzzed. It was Marcus. *What's for dinner tonight? I might need to invite myself over if it's anything good. I laughed out loud, shaking my head. Without even thinking, I replied, *only if you don't mind takeout. Cooking isn't happening tonight. *. Marcus's response was immediate. *perfect. I'll bring dessert. *. It felt so easy. *2 easy. But I told myself it was harmless. Neighbors share meals all the time, right? That evening, Marcus showed up, and we spread takeout boxes across my coffee table like it was some kind of impromptu feast. True to his word, he brought dessert, a small container of chocolate mousse he'd made himself. And let me tell you, it was better than anything I'd had at a 5-star restaurant. You made this? I asked, practically incredulous. He grinned. Cooking's kind of my therapy. It's how I unwind. Well, it's unfair how good this is, I said, taking another bite, savoring every second. The conversation flowed effortlessly, like it always did. But tonight, something was different. The way Marcus's eyes lingered just a little too long. The way I laughed at his jokes, too easily, too freely. There was this energy in the air, like we were tiptoeing along the edge of something we both weren't ready to acknowledge. At one point, Marcus leaned back on the couch, his expression thoughtful. You're really easy to talk to, you know that? I glanced at him, trying to keep my tone light. I'll take that as a compliment. It is, he said, his voice quieter now. I don't think I've felt this comfortable around someone in a long time. His words hit me like a wave. They stirred up a mix of emotions I wasn't prepared for, a tangle of guilt, confusion, and something else I didn't want to name. I looked away, focusing on the empty takeout containers in front of me. I should probably clean this up, I said, standing quickly. I'll help, Marcus offered, following me into the kitchen. We worked in silence, the kind of silence that wasn't really silent. The air between us felt thick, heavy with everything we weren't saying. Then, as I reached for a dish towel, our hands brushed. I froze. It was such a small thing, barely even a touch, but it sent a jolt through me. Sorry, Marcus said softly, stepping back. It's fine, I replied, avoiding his gaze. Thanks for helping with the dishes. Sensing the shift in the mood, Marcus grabbed his jacket. I should get going. Thanks for dinner and for letting me crash your evening. Anytime, I said, forcing a smile. He hesitated, like he wanted to say more, but then he just nodded and walked out the door. As soon as it clicked shut, my phone buzzed. It was Marcus. I hope I didn't overstep tonight. I just really enjoy being around you. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. What did he mean by that? Was he just being kind? Or was there something more? I read his words over and over, my mind racing. My thumbs hovered over the keyboard as I tried to come up with the perfect reply. Something casual, neutral. Something that wouldn't encourage anything but also wouldn't shut it down. Finally, I typed, asterisk, you didn't overstep. It's nice having company while Dave's away. Asterisk. The second I hit send, regret hit me like a freight train. Why did I even mention Dave? Was I trying to remind asterisk him asterisk or asterisk myself asterisk that I was married? Marcus replied almost instantly, asterisk, glad to hear that. Let me know if you ever need company again. Asterisk. I set my phone down, my stomach in knots. Part of me knew I needed to put some distance between us, but another part, a part I wasn't ready to admit even existed, liked the attention. It had been a long time since anyone had looked at me the way Marcus did, since anyone had made me feel asterisk seen asterisk. The next few days passed uneventfully. I threw myself into work, ran errands, and did my best to avoid Marcus. But no matter how busy I kept myself, I couldn't stop thinking about him, his laugh, the way he genuinely enjoyed our conversations, the way his presence seemed to fill the room. Then Friday came, and the silence broke. I was sitting in the kitchen, sipping my coffee, when... Picture this, it's a quiet evening, and I'm sitting in my backyard with a glass of wine, trying to unwind. The air is cool, the crickets are humming, and I'm finally finding a little peace, until I hear his voice. Hey, neighbor. I looked up to see Marcus leaning against the fence, beer in hand, and that easy, disarming smile on his face. Hey, I replied, keeping my tone casual, though my heart skipped a beat. Mind if I join you? I hesitated for only a moment before nodding. Sure. With the grace of someone who'd done it 100 times, Marcus climbed over the low part of the fence and sat across from me. For a while, neither of us said anything. The night air wrapped around us, quiet but charged with an energy I couldn't quite place. I was starting to think you were avoiding me, he said, his tone light, but his eyes searching mine. Just busy, I replied, quickly taking a sip of my wine, hoping it would steady me. Marcus nodded, though his expression suggested he didn't fully believe me. I get it. Life gets in the way sometimes. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind that felt like it carried weight, like something unspoken hung between us. Then Marcus broke it, his voice softer this time. You ever feel like you're stuck in a routine? Like every day's the same, and you're just going through the motions? I glanced at him, caught off guard by the vulnerability in his question. Sometimes, I admitted, I think everyone feels that way at some point. He nodded, staring down at his beer. That's why I moved here. I needed a change, a chance to start over. I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded, letting his words linger in the air. Then he looked at me, and something in his gaze made my breath catch. You're different, though, he said, his voice steady but quiet. You make things feel lighter, like there's more to life than just the routine. My heart skipped a beat. The way he said it, the way his eyes held mine, it was too much. I stood abruptly, the sound of my chair scraping against the patio breaking the moment. I should probably head inside, I said, my voice unsteady. It's getting late. Marcus stood, his expression unreadable. Of course. Thanks for letting me crash your evening. Anytime, I said automatically, though I wasn't sure I meant it. As soon as I locked the door behind him, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Marcus. Asterisk, I meant what I said out there. You're different. Asterisk. My hands trembled as I set the phone down. How much longer could I keep walking this line before everything came crashing down? The days that followed were a blur of emotions I couldn't quite untangle. I threw myself into work, errands, anything to keep my mind occupied. But no matter what I did, I couldn't shake the memory of Marcus's words, his gaze, the way he made me feel. Noticed. I told myself it was innocent, that nothing had really happened. But deep down I knew better. The line between friendship and something more was blurring, and I wasn't sure where it would lead, or if I even wanted to stop it. Then came Wednesday. The rain started as a drizzle but quickly turned into a full-on summer storm, the kind that soaks everything in minutes. I was curled up on the couch, watching a movie, when there was a knock at the door. I opened it to find Marcus, drenched from head to toe, holding a bottle of wine. "Marcus, what are you doing out in this weather?" I asked, stepping aside to let him in. "My power's out," he said, shaking water from his hair. "Figured I'd see if your lights were still on, and bring this as a peace offering for intruding." He held up the wine with a sheepish grin. I hesitated. I knew I should probably send him home, but the storm was raging, and he looked genuinely miserable. "Come in," I said with a sigh. "I'll grab you a towel." As he dried off, I poured us each a glass of wine. "You really didn't have to come over," I said as we sat down. He shrugged. "Didn't feel like sitting in the dark. Besides, your company's better than staring at a wall." The storm outside seemed to amplify everything. The sound of rain pounding against the windows, the flicker of candlelight where the lights dimmed for a moment. It felt intimate, too intimate. We talked, like we always did, but tonight was different. The tension between us was impossible to ignore, and as much as I tried to brush it off, I knew I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't come back from. There was something different this time. An edge to Marcus's voice, a weight to his words that made the air feel heavy. At one point, he leaned forward, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "You know," he said, his voice low and steady, "I've never met anyone like you. You're smart, funny, and you don't even realize how incredible you are." I froze. My heart pounded in my chest as the words hung in the air. "Marcus, I started, but he cut me off, leaning back and running a hand through his hair. "I know," he said quickly. "I know you're married. I'm not trying to cross any lines, but I can't help how I feel." His words hit like a tidal wave, heavy, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. I should have shut it down right then and there, told him to leave, reminded both him and myself of the boundaries we were supposed to respect. But instead, I just sat there, unable to look away. "I don't know what to say," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the rain pounding against the windows. "You don't have to say anything," Marcus said, standing up and moving toward the door. I needed to be honest with you." He reached for the doorknob, his back to me. "I'm sorry if I've made things complicated. That was never my intention." "Marcus, wait," I said, standing without thinking. He turned, and for a moment, it felt like the entire world stopped. The storm outside, the tension in the air, the unspoken feelings between us, it all came crashing down. Marcus hesitated, his hand still resting on the doorknob. "If you tell me to leave, I will," he said quietly. "But if there's even a part of you that feels what I feel, just say the word." I stared at him, my heart in my throat. I knew whatever came out of my mouth next would change everything. The air was thick with the weight of his words, pressing down on me like a vice. My mind screamed at me to say the right thing, to stop this before we crossed a line we couldn't uncross. But my heart was screaming something entirely different. "I can't," I finally whispered, my voice trembling. "This isn't right." Marcus's expression softened, and he nodded, his voice calm. "I know it's not, but that doesn't change how I feel." He took a small step closer, his eyes searching mine. "I'm not asking for anything. I needed you to know." I couldn't breathe. My mind was spinning, a whirlwind of guilt, fear, confusion, and something else I wasn't ready to name. I felt trapped, caught between what I knew was right and what my heart was quietly begging for. "Marcus, we can't do this," I said, finally finding the strength to speak. "We haven't done anything," he replied, his tone steady, though his eyes betrayed the raw emotion he was holding back. "But tell me honestly, if he wasn't in the picture, would things be different?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. I wanted to lie, to say no, to convince him that nothing would ever change. But I couldn't. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely audible. Marcus nodded slowly, a sad smile tugging at the corners of his lips. That's all I needed to hear. He turned back to the door, his hand tightening on the knob. "Good night, Evelyn," he said, his voice soft, almost resigned. "Good night, Marcus," I whispered, my words barely reaching him as he stepped out into the storm. I stood there for a moment, watching his figure disappear into the darkness. When I finally closed the door, I leaned against it, tears streaming down my face. What had I done? What was I doing? The storm outside raged on, a perfect reflection of the chaos swirling inside me. I knew I'd just dodged a bullet, or maybe I hadn't. Because even though nothing had happened, the feelings were still there, lingering, heavy, like the scent of rain after the storm.